So, the next panel is about how to turn quantity into quality, best retention strategies, and it will be conducted by Ulviyya Bayramova, who's the product platform manager at Adjust. Ulviyya. Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
All right. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you to come here. And I want to start with a question. How many of you have been in a situation where you see an ad of those awesome shoes, you click on it, you really want to buy them, but you land somewhere on the home screen of the app, you're lost and disappointed? All right, that's awesome, because we have the experts of retention strategies here who would like to share their precious insights with us. Please give an applause to my guests again. Why don't we start with a little round of introduction? Tell us who you are and what you do, so everyone knows.
Hey everyone, I'm Christian, nice to meet you all. I run a company called Customlytics, and we do consulting for all topics around app marketing. Rather than just the strategy part, we get very technical actually, so we help guys setting up their stack of tools. So we help them setting up Adjust, for example, connected to their CRM tool, all that kind of stuff. We're doing that for 2 years now. Before that, I was working for Delivery Hero here in Berlin as well, where I first met and actually hired Carolyn. So a couple of different roles in there, heading CRM at some point for mobile. So yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Erman. I'm joining from Stepstone. I work at Stepstone, sitting in Düsseldorf. I'm responsible of app marketing only with different GEOs, so Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, and Netherlands. And I'm here to talk to you about retention and re-engagement.
Hi, my name is Carolyn. I work as a CRM tech manager at Delivery Hero. I think everyone knows the company. It's an online food delivery platform who works globally across 45 countries. And there I'm responsible for technical CRM infrastructure, SDK QAs, troubleshooting, researching and driving for new features and innovations.
Hello, my name is Rakesh. I head the digital at Careem. So Careem is a ride-hailing app based in the Middle East. We operate in 12 countries and close to 100 cities in the region. My background was with Rocket Internet as well, so there's quite a lot of familiar faces here.
Okay, thank you. A lot of marketers spend a bunch of time acquiring users, and then they just fail basically engaging them properly in the end. So I would like to ask you how you identify your quality users, and then why do you think it is so important to focus on those in the end?
Yeah. So I think the universal or kind of generic answer to that is probably focus on the ones that generate the most revenue or value in general for your business. I think this is probably something that can be applied to all cases. Obviously then there are verticals where the correlation to revenue is more direct, say e-commerce. And then there are other verticals where, you know, the currency is probably more in the likes of kind of time spent in the app. And why is it important to kind of retain them? Well, because otherwise you just leave out on a lot of potential, really. Retaining users in general kind of will help you to kind of optimize the efficiency of everything you do, especially if you do paid marketing stuff. It will also kind of help you to increase the efficiency of user acquisition campaigns because, well, then suddenly people, you know, will start to use the app more and more. So it's a crucial part of any kind of marketing strategy, actually.
Yeah, so user acquisition is like really the key factor of any business. So the new users are the users that we acquire always comes to that funnel and like, you know, into a stage where that the retention game starts, right? So this is very crucial for any business to have the new users and to have the quality set of users. And answering your second question, that why is new users like really important, and like how to engage them. It's basically for ride hailing and e-commerce, there's a lot of different aspects and different sets of organization efforts that needs to be done. So in gaming industry, it would be more of like, to the user acquisition and mainly responsible for the paid or the marketeers. But in terms of ride hailing and the e-commerce, it has different aspects such as, from the marketeers to the product, to the care systems, the customer care, and a lot of these metrics. So having those users pass to these sets of different aspects of the organization is really crucial. So this is where a lot of those event and its attributes plays in place, right? So when we get users from Facebook, Twitter, or any other channels, it passes to certain set of segments and certain sets of organization aspects. So for example, there's a lot of questions when we normally when we acquire users, they ask like, oh, why is Facebook giving us bad quality users? But it's necessarily not Facebook is generating those bad quality users. So there could be a lot of reasons, right? So for example, in the ride-hailing app, when he download, install, and sign up, when he press to book a ride, he will not find a car to do. And then it's not be passed as a feedback system to the marketer saying that like, this is the issue of you, that like, we got these bad quality users. So these events and attributes, what we are trying to do is like making definitely a lot of interest and information to make pass to all the set of users, all the set of orgs part, and make sure those qualities being driven and like everyone has a responsibility to this.
Cool. So what would be the first thing you recommend someone who just started working on their retention strategy and would like to focus on those users?
I would say just take a good look at your user base and your product and try to understand what would be the best way. Look at your data also to understand what's actually you expect your users to do. This is not only new users that you want to actually do these events. Obviously, like your user base is just a bucket of users, and you just want to use them as best as possible. So identifying the events that's actually bringing the most value for you. Of course, check as many in-app events as possible, but also understanding what events actually are bringing you the most value, or which ones are actually the easiest ones to check for you or understand the business value is more important. So I think a good step would be to sit down with your team of the product, like developers and marketing people, maybe invite your account manager from it, just to understand what actually should be the events, how much you should push for the users, for re-engaging the users, etc. So I think understanding your product and the roadmap, looking at the data would be a best way to start this process.
I definitely agree with this. So if you're starting off with a good user base, you already have information about your users. So in terms of Delivery Hero, for example, you may be looking what is his favorite food to order? When does he like to order? Do you already see a pattern, certain time of the day, or which days of the week? What is his favorite food? Stuff like this. So you already have a good ground of all of these informations, and then you just need to take it and use it for your CRM or retention strategy, for segmentation, for personalization, make it very granular. And then, of course, also you can add additional data tracking points in your app SDKs to even collect further user data that are specifically for the app, or in the web specifically for the web users. So definitely agree looking at the user base that you have and use that information.
Cool, that sounds good. How about the impact of the onboarding on the retention strategy, on the retention rate that you get? Like, what are your learnings from the past experience you had?
So we call it as the seed of the churn is already on the onboarding process. So if you are not very sure what kind of use case and value propositions that you want to make sure your product is viable towards a customer, this is very crucial for every set of business. So if you mess up around like any of those structures, your seed of churn will happen and the retention rate is gone. So I think a lot of audience can resonate themselves in saying that there is an ideal world and a realistic world as well. So where in ideal world people can like really draw amazing onboard journeys and kind of stuff, but when it comes to like really integrating with the sets of events and attributes is going to be really tough. So it all will hamper your retention strategy from the day one. So I think onboarding is like super viable and like should be like really strong to have a great impact in your customer journeys.
I mean, yes, onboarding is super important, but also it's about the whole journey, right? Like you would want to give the right message to the right users at the right time, and then they would open the app and possibly reach out to the right content as fast as possible. So if you have a really big content, like your content is super deep and you would need some predictive analytics, for example, to understand which users you would want to match with which content, yes, you would need to understand a little bit more, but it's not only onboarding, which is obviously a super important part, but also like making your product a little bit better so the users, it will be fun for the users to retain, or it will be interesting for the users to retain as much as possible.
Yeah, I think, so first of all, huge +1 for that kind of, that rule that you said where, yeah, I mean, user churn starts right after the install. And then onboarding in that sense is part of retention already. And I think only thing that I would have to add to it, what you guys said, is that ideally what you want the onboarding to be already, as with all the other, let's say, good retention strategies, is that it should already be personalized / individualized, meaning that if you see that Facebook ad for Adidas sneakers, you don't have the Zalando app installed. What you want is to kind of use a deferred deep link, install the app, and then when you get to the Zalando app, you don't want to be stuck in the onboarding. Please enter your mail now. No, you want to see the product page of the Adidas sneakers. So this is where I think onboarding kind of already starts. Because if you think about it as a kind of journey, it probably starts at the kind of, the point where you see the ad, and then you don't want friction in that onboarding process of any kind. So I think this is crucial.
Right, that leads actually to my quote. In one of the latest think tanks we had, there's a member who said that if you're waiting until your users lapse, until you try to engage them, you're not really doing your job. So I guess you would agree. So what do you guys think? And like, how would you recommend to start re-engaging those users properly?
So,
apart from.
So there is a yes or no. So why yes? Yes, because when the user comes in and like, if you don't have a proper onboarding or any of this stuff, it will have a great impact. And the second factor which I say is no is that, so a lot of these companies focus on this acquisition, activation, retention, re-engagement process kind of stuff. I think when you have a huge user base of smartphone users in a specific market, and when you try to resonate that to your installs, if you don't have like a plan of like how you want to re-engage, this would always matter for you the most. For example, if you keep acquiring like half of the base for a specific market, that means that like, and you are not, and then you're thinking, okay, let me now re-engage with the users without having proper events and attributes, you are going to have a deep problems in terms of getting back those users back and the channels that you can reach them. So to answer your question, it's an yes or no, but I think most importantly, like now with having a lot of competition in the app market and that kind of stuff, it should be a proper reactive retention first, and then focus on acquisition and activation and kind of stuff. That's what ideally I would be doing, because now we have like so much of user base before thinking of what to do. But this is going to be a key in for new markets and new organizations.
So I guess for that question, I think there's probably a thin line between waiting too long to re-engage users and cannibalizing people that would have did whatever you want them to do anyways. So I think it's right to get that kind of timing right there. It's the same story, by the way, with paid retargeting efforts. So if you already have the Zalando app and I show you that sneaker ad again on Facebook to get you back to the app to buy it eventually, it's the same story. Only thing is that it's probably even worse on the paid retargeting side because there you pay for it, while on CRM, yeah, well, worst case, you waste a message. Long story short, I think you have to come up with some kind of ID, and I still strongly support that that kind of idea of there is a natural way of behavior for users. So if you think about the very early days at Delivery Hero, actually, and maybe tell us if that's still present. When we first integrated a mobile CRM tool, we were making up our minds of, okay, so what exactly is the natural way of behavior for users? What we ended up with is that basically people get acquired, regardless how they were acquired, organically or paid. We wait for the first weekend, because typically weekend is the 2 days where people order food. We wait for the weekend, and if they didn't order, we will kind of try to re-engage them already the week after. So this was kind of the very, very super early rule that we made up, and I think in every business you need something like this to make sure that, yeah, you're not, let's say, over-attributing CRM activities.
There is an interesting article shared by Jacques, who's in from Glovo. So merging CRM and paid retargeting, and it's in the growth stack, which is like really crucial for a lot of startups and kind of stuff to implement in the early stages, and that's like one of the best things I've ever read.
Okay. Then I would have a next question what would be the next step for you in the waterfall when you see those users basically leave, and how would you get them back to the app? You mentioned pushes, so is there anything else that you would jump into?
I mean, it makes sense to segment your users to understand which ones to reach when with what message. I mean, just touching to the previous point really quickly also, there's a lot of touch points to the users that you can show them a message, send them a push before they actually churn. So if you're waiting until your user is churning, like you're losing all these opportunities. So in the end, the action could be segmenting your users in the way your app, in a way that it makes sense for your product, and then giving them the right message could be a good start. Good next step, sorry.
Reality, throw promo codes, send a lot of SMS to get them back.
Right, but basically you have a situation where you just gonna do something in the app, like I'm gonna read the book that I have it, and then you get a push notification. And it's basically about the timing. So I get a little creeped out when I get a push notification right before you're gonna do something. So where's the right timing there? Do you have any?
So what we're trying to build now is that like the users that we acquired, we didn't engage. It's like, building the right use case and value propositions, and have that story first, and then engaging with the channel specifically. So that's what we're trying to do now. I think, so if you look at Careem, we have different sets of products, such as there is an affordable product, then there is like a bit more expensive, there is pooling, and there are a lot of those features. So we're just trying to map a different set of use cases and value proposition and attach to the right set of channels. So that's what we are trying to do now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add here, it's also a point to use, for example, predictive retention models. So for example, do you know when is the point of time that your users start lapsing? So often it's not immediately right after they installed the app or used the app or used your product for the first time. So it's like different factors that come into place here. So that's why, for example, like we said before, a proper onboarding is super crucial step for your retention strategy, as this supports the process of engaging your users in the long run. And then you can use predictive models to say, okay, in this market, these users start churning then or lapsing them then, etc. And then if all things are lost, I mean, in between you have, or we have, for example, engagement campaigns, right? Because we're working on this relationship with the user. We are an equal partner. So we have, for example, anniversary campaigns to keep them engaged, to say, or thank you messages, so that we care, make the user feel valuable and special throughout the journey of his life cycle. And then, of course, if all things are lost and you see, okay, he isn't coming back, then, of course, we are at the end of the life cycle, and then you can apply churning, win-back campaigns, get them back. Restate your USPs, say what is he missing out, offer special deals, values, yeah, just make sure why you are special, why you care about this user to get them back.
Maybe adding to the initial question of what other channels are there to kind of bring back users, because we are kind of push notification is the obvious one. Then we heard SMS, which is sadly not so popular in Germany, but outside it is. But then obviously there's also mail. I mean, mail is mobile these days anyways. You can't really, I mean, you can opt out, but yeah, it doesn't happen as often as it happens with push notifications. So mail is probably one of the major channels to bring back users, especially because it still works when they uninstall the app compared to push notifications. So I think this is the stuff that you can do outside of the app, and then inside of the app, which is obviously not driving app openness necessarily, but rather kind of, you know, it helps identifying with the brand for the user, is stuff like in-app messages, something like having a block inside of the app, or newsfeed, as it is called sometimes. So this is all stuff that just, you know, increases stickiness for the people that are already in the app. I think to bring users to the app, it's really push, SMS, and mail.
Right. Do you have any push notification services in mind that you would recommend to the audience? Anything?
Yeah, I think we use Braze, so we're just implementing, so I cannot say what is really happening, but I think we're just changing from a previous vendor to this new vendor. So they're really good. I think one of the key aspects of mobile CRM is that, like, you know, integrating with cross departments and cross functions, which is also a part of the user experience. So what we did was that we made sure we work with all the different set of departments and understand what their different set of use cases are, such as with, so we call it as like supply, where we have the cars that's going to be distributed, and like, so we understand their use cases, and along with that use cases, we had prepared the set of events that we want to measure and kind of stuff. So in those kind of events, we said whether we wanted to do the SDK level implementation or server-to-server integration and kind of stuff. And we also looked at webhooks, where we can just try to integrate with SMS and all those kind of different set of platforms. So ideally, like, you know, Braze also does with a lot of these things. And I think, again, tagging adjust, that which we use, is also a part of that ongoing experience to cover the entire user journey. And this is where we wanted to do a fallback, and a lot of these integrations are like very keen for us. So I think it's our transactions are like not in like an e-commerce style. It's like in more of thousands and thousands of transactions every day. So we have to really make sure that, like, you know, all the different sets of user cases are captured.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, as being kind of tool agnostic advisors, it's kind of a big part of our job to kind of stay on top of all the tools in the market and kind of keep benchmarking them, which is extremely difficult in the CRM space, because the amount of kind of vendors that exists is like, you know, a magnitude compared to something like in the tracking space, where you have 3.5 reasonable players. So it's difficult. If I would have to draw a kind of bottom line of that, I think there are two kind of leaders right now by some margin, and that is Braze, formerly AppBoy, and the second one being Lean Plum, both from the US. those fit a lot of the kind of most common use cases already, because this is really what you have to look for when you kind of decide on a tool. Really go there and look for, okay, so I have this use case. Is this tool going to work for me or not? Don't just buy anything because the sales presentation is great and then turns out they can't do what you want. And then there are some other vendors in the field that can work very well for specific use cases, like Localytics, if you want to use it as an analytics tool as well, and others. But I think those two are the main leaders right now.
Okay. When it comes to retention rate, what is the challenge, or like what are the challenges and no-goes that you've faced so far? Any interesting insights on that part?
So I mean, like, for us, because it's a job board, we would expect some of the users to actually, I mean, we would want our users to actually connect with the great jobs that they are looking for, and find the jobs, and hopefully not retain for a while. So they will find their job, get connected, start their new job, and it's understandable that these users will not be still keeping their retention. But in the end, we would still want them to come back to our app, check out new job listings, etc. So, for example, I think it just has this new product called uninstall tracking. So understanding when your users are actually going to uninstall, and then trying to retain them as much as possible until they do this, or after they uninstall, getting them back, it can be a good way of increasing your retention, or understanding how your retention should work, because not all the products are going to be same like the games, that you want to retain users for an infinite amount of time. It's more about your product to see when you want to see like higher retention rates, or when it's going to go down, etc.
So the honest feedback is the challenges are internal challenges, right? So to make sure the product and like the engineering teams are aware of what are the core things that like we wanted to measure and track. This is one of the biggest factors that like which I think most of the audience can resonate themselves when we speak about retention, like 7 days, 30 days, or even cohorts, or like, how want to get those data. There is BI involved, there's product involved, and like, and it depends on ventures to companies, where there's from small scale to big companies, where small, it's like very easy to align with 4 sets of heads on different sets of departments. And like when it comes to larger organization, there is a lot of people that needs to be involved, and like, kind of decision making and the skill set. This is the other key thing to make sure this is very keen thing. I think rather than that is, if there is a person who can understand the retention side of stuff, what we want to track and kind of stuff, basically the different sets of use case that go down to the KPIs, and they goes down to the events and attributes. And it's about implementing, that's the right thing, and challenges, and cross-channel marketing is like another big challenge once after we do these things. So this is what I have experienced across.
And I guess one other major challenge in any retention activity is attribution. Like, what is the exact value that I'm driving with that push notification? What is a good model to kind of put that into all the funky attribution models that I already have for user acquisition? Where how is CRM fitting in there? Putting an address tracking link behind a push notification? Maybe not for the rest of the user lifetime, then having them attributed to that. And I think this is probably a major challenge also, because there's no like one size fits it all answer to it. What it definitely shouldn't be is something like, the same as with user acquisition a lot, which is like less click, well then yeah, Sunday afternoon I'm sending a push notification to everyone. Big surprise, 100% of orders coming from CRM. That's great. Yeah, so attribution is difficult because users are already there. Typically, you already paid some amount if it was paid acquisition. So it's difficult to really kind of factor in the value of retention there. Because in the end, all the tools, they have licensing costs. You have to kind of justify that as well. That is, I think, a major challenge.
And I don't know whether there is one attribution model that like everyone follows, right?
Yeah, probably not one to fit all.
Thank think so. Okay, is there any interesting example of retention data you'd like to share, for example, from your experience working with different clients? Like certain KPIs or what people should stick to when they start working the retention rate?
So the biggest advice there is probably, and this is something that you really have to do in the beginning because otherwise it's lost forever, is that when you integrate a mobile CRM tool, any kind of CRM tool, make sure to introduce a global baseline of users or control group of users that is never receiving any kind of messaging. Maybe something the likes of 10%, whatever, something along those lines. And then really stick to it. Never start, never follow this argumentation of, hey, but we're losing out 10% of the potential there, let's just take them into this kind of super important messaging. No. Really strictly stick to the rule of kind of keeping them apart, never send anything to them, also not just in the app, also exclude them from mail. Basically exclude them from any kind of retention efforts. And then really go there maybe 6 months after the integration, take a look, to actually see the uplift, because otherwise, I think otherwise it actually becomes pretty close to impossible to find that attribution model in the end. Because what you want with that attribution model is, again, to really find the value that that CRM tool or retention strategy is bringing you. But if you don't even know the kind of uplift versus organic, how should you ever know kind of the exact value of the tool? So this is, I think, the biggest advice there.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. This is my last question. What do you think will be like the big next topic for the retention or the future? Anything new?
I would say predictive analytics to send the right message at the right time to the right user is one of the more important parts. I think there was one study that I just did with a news app from US. I think Smart News was the name. So they figured out which push message was the right push message for which person, because there's a big depth of content. There's a lot of different news, and the users are interested in different parts of the app. So just matching these at the right time would be, I think, one of the next big steps.
I'd say also I would completely agree with this, and also this cross-channel or cross-device marketing. It's not that, may not sound that exciting or something, but I think it's still a lot of brands are lacking this, and it's just really important with like the smart devices and smart homes being there, Alexa or Google Home, something like this. It has to be a very intuitive and seamless experience for the user. It should not be a competition of channels, but more like a complementary approach. Another thing I think is this gamification factor, especially in the CRM area. I think a lot of brands could benefit from it. So if I look, for example, for the food ordering business, just like things like waiting for your food after you've ordered, a little bit entertainment doesn't hurt. Keep the user engaged, keep them, make them like your app and like waiting for the food while playing a game or achieving a certain level, for example. And also something that Rakesh mentioned earlier, I also completely agree, is this eliminating the silos between like performance marketing and CRM and using like reattributing with like Facebook ads and just making this kind of thing smarter.
I want to add one last thing where Carolyn was mentioning. So I think gamification is like really big for a part of a retention strategy as well. So what Uber did with Snapchat was that like the integration happened with Snapchat, and then you can share your ETAs with your friends and kind of stuff. That makes it more ideal for people to stick with the app and like, play around with that thing. And also what we focused was like, also integrating with air miles and kind of stuff. This is also one of the key thing, rather than use your channel strategy, also like, use the best other integrations possible to make sure the users are active.
Yeah, I think adding to what we just heard, I think although it's such a terrible buzzword these days, machine learning is probably one of the next things in retention or mobile CRM. And as the Brace users know, that already starts with the delivery of the messages, when to send, how to send them, then goes to stuff like A/B testing, where you have, let's say, two creatives. One, I think, typical use cases that we see a lot is, one caption of a push notification with emojis and one without, and then you go there and set it up as an A/B test, and first 10 or 20% of the messages go out, and then the tool decides what the rest will get based on the results of that. So I think we will see more in that direction, and yeah, so things will get better.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're done with the questions, and we have very little time, but maybe one question from the audience, and it would be nice if you could address it directly to panelists you'd like to hear the answer from. Is there any? Should.
You guys talked a bit about your mobile CRM tools that you're using, but maybe you can share a bit more on other app analytics tools that you're happy with, aside from Adjust. Thanks.
And the question goes to anyone?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do, like I said, Adjust is one of the core thing that we are just trying to do. And also what we're trying to also do is bring in Google Analytics as well. So it's more of understanding. So we are just not focused only on mobile channels. We are also focusing on partnerships and like a lot of those other stuff as well. And bringing that inside is also one of the key things that like we want to measure outside of the mobile marketing ecosystem. That's something which we are focusing on. But to give you that expectation, there is a lot of challenges in terms of building that ecosystem in the mobile, because Google has not been really, I don't know if there is any more Google people here, but it's not been that, it's not very straightforward for integrations.
So I think one app analytics tool that we quite recently got addicted to is Epsi, the Israeli company. We have a couple of clients running on them now because of us, and it's probably the best kind of user analytics or / user behavior tool that we've seen so far, because it does things that were completely unheard of in mobile, like heat maps for the different views. So you really kind of go there and see, okay, so where are the users clicking? The journey visualization is much better than anything you see in Google Analytics, Firebase, anything like that. And if you can even go there and do like screen video recording of the user sessions, which is insanely helpful. If you ever worked in product management and ever received a bug report saying, hey, so I was using the app and then it crashed. Can you fix this? This is like immensely helpful because you can actually view a video of what the user did before the app crashed. So Epsi is, yeah, we pretty much like the tool. No rev share involved.
I think rather than focusing on a lot of different set of tools, I think having a proper BI system is very crucial, and that will tell a lot of your information of what tools cannot, right? So, and sending those events back to tools is also very key, necessary for that. Like, I think that's very key.
Any more questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.